Grigori Rasputin, a name that echoes through the corridors of Russian history, shrouded in mystery and controversy. The name alone evokes images of a wild-eyed mystic, a puppet master behind the Russian Empire's final days. He was a figure who seemed to defy explanation, both feared and revered by those who knew him. He's been called a holy man, a charlatan, a healer, and even the devil incarnate. To some, he was a miracle worker, with the power to heal the sick and influence the fate of nations. To others, he was a dangerous fraud, manipulating the royal family for his own gain. But was he truly the shadowy figure who toppled the Romanovs, or just a scapegoat for a crumbling society? Was he the architect of the empire's downfall, or simply a man caught in the whirlwind of history? Rasputin was a man of contradictions, a peasant who advised an empress, a simple villager who found himself at the center of imperial intrigue. A sinner seen as a saint, he inspired both devotion and disgust. His spiritual teachings drew crowds, yet his personal life was the subject of endless gossip and scandal. A man of God who indulged in earthly pleasures, Rasputin blurred the lines between the sacred and the profane, leaving those around him both fascinated and appalled. To understand him, we must peel back the layers of myth and propaganda, separating fact from fiction in a story that has been retold for generations. Our journey takes us from the frozen wilds of Siberia, where Rasputin's legend began, to the glittering palaces of St. Petersburg, where he would leave an indelible mark on Russian history. This is the story of how one enigmatic man, through charisma, timing, and perhaps a touch of fate, found himself at the heart of an empire on the brink of collapse, a story that continues to captivate and confound to this day. Our story begins in the frozen heart of Siberia, in the tiny, isolated village of Pokrovskoye. Life here was harsh and unforgiving, shaped by the endless winters and the vast, open landscapes. The people of Pokrovskoye were simple, hard-working peasants, bound to the rhythms of the land and the traditions of rural Russia. It was in this humble setting, in 1869, that Grigori Rasputin was born to a peasant family. His early years were marked by poverty, superstition, and the close-knit bonds of village life. Like most children in Pokrovskoye, Rasputin grew up surrounded by stories of saints, miracles, and the mysterious power of faith. For nearly 3 decades, Rasputin lived an ordinary existence, working the fields, tending animals, and following the customs of his ancestors. But beneath the surface, he was restless, searching for something more. At the age of 28, a profound spiritual awakening shattered the routine of his life, setting him on a path that would change not only his destiny, but the fate of Russia itself. Leaving behind his wife and children, Rasputin set out on foot as a wandering pilgrim. He journeyed across the vast Russian countryside, visiting remote monasteries and sacred shrines. He survived on the charity of strangers, sleeping in barns and roadside chapels, and immersing himself in prayer and contemplation. Along the way, he developed a unique, unorthodox spirituality that set him apart from other seekers. Rasputin never took monastic vows, nor did he join any religious order. Yet his hypnotic presence, wild appearance, and piercing eyes soon earned him a reputation as a mystic and healer. Some people whispered about his strange powers and the miracles he was said to perform. And he preached a radical message for his time, that anyone could find God through personal experience rather than through rigid church dogma. This belief, both inspiring and controversial, would later fuel rumors and suspicions about his behavior and intentions. By the early 1900s, Rasputin's fame as a spiritual guide had spread far beyond his village. He attracted followers from all walks of life, peasants, priests, and even members of the Russian aristocracy and clergy, all drawn to his charisma and mysterious aura. This growing reputation would soon draw him to the glittering imperial capital, St. Petersburg, a city of power, intrigue, and danger. There, Rasputin would rise to dizzying heights, but also face forces that would ultimately lead to his downfall. In 1905, St. Petersburg was a city of opulence and unrest, rocked by revolution and defeat. Into this world stepped Rasputin, the ultimate outsider, introduced to high society by the Black Princesses, royal sisters obsessed with mysticism. They presented him to the royal confessor, who was impressed by Rasputin's piety. On November 1st, 1905, Tsar Nicholas II wrote, "We have made the acquaintance of a man of God, Grigori. The Tsar and especially Tsarina Alexandra were captivated by Rasputin's charisma and faith, seeing him as a spiritual guide in troubled times. This meeting set the stage for Rasputin's rise and the royal family's growing dependence on him. Rasputin's true power within the Russian royal court stemmed from his mysterious connection to Tsarevich Alexei, the only son and heir to the Romanov dynasty. Alexei suffered from hemophilia, a rare and incurable blood disorder that left him vulnerable to the smallest injuries. Every bruise or cut could be life-threatening, casting a constant shadow over the royal family. In 1912, a particularly severe episode left Alexei at death's door, his life hanging by a thread. Desperate and terrified, Tsarina Alexandra turned to Rasputin, the enigmatic Siberian mystic she believed was sent by God to save her son. Rasputin, unable to visit in person, sent a telegram with a simple but powerful message: "The little one will not die." Miraculously, Alexei's condition improved soon after. The royal family was astonished, and Alexandra saw this as nothing short of a divine intervention. Some say it was Rasputin's prayers, others believed it was his advice to stop the doctor's treatments that helped Alexei recover. Perhaps it was simply luck or the boy's own resilience, but for Alexandra, Rasputin's role as a healer was now unquestionable. From that moment, Rasputin became indispensable to the Romanovs, especially to the Tsarina, who saw him as her son's savior and her own spiritual guide. He was welcomed into the inner sanctum of the palace, a trusted confidant and a source of hope. Rasputin was now a secret weapon in the palace, a figure whose presence brought comfort to Alexandra during her darkest hours. To the Tsarina, he was more than an advisor. He was her rock, the one person she believed could protect her fragile son. Rasputin's influence was deeply emotional and spiritual, not overtly political, at least in the beginning. But this intense bond created a dangerous dependency, blinding Alexandra to the growing unrest and anger outside the palace walls. As Rasputin's presence became more prominent, he attracted suspicion and scandal, becoming a lightning rod for gossip and resentment. The Russian public and nobility whispered about his influence, fueling rumors that would soon spiral out of control. Rasputin's reputation became a source of national controversy, and the fate of the monarchy itself grew increasingly tied to the fate of the so-called Mad Monk. In the eyes of many, the destiny of the Romanovs and of Russia now rested in the hands of this mysterious healer. With Nicholas at the front during World War I, Alexandra relied almost entirely on Rasputin's advice. He didn't rule Russia, but his opinions on ministerial appointments relayed through the Tsarina led to chaos and instability. The public, already suspicious of Alexandra, saw Rasputin's influence as proof of corruption and treason. Wild rumors of affairs and orgies spread, though there's no credible evidence for them. Rasputin was a shrewd opportunist, not an evil genius, but his presence symbolized the monarchy's fatal isolation. The myth of Rasputin grew even as the empire unraveled. As Russia's war losses mounted, Rasputin became the nation's scapegoat, blamed for everything from military defeat to bread shortages. Accused of being a German spy and corrupting the court, he was despised by aristocrats and commoners alike. Even the Tsar's relatives begged for his removal, but Nicholas refused. In 1914, Rasputin survived a brutal stabbing by a former follower, only enhancing his legend. His survival emboldened him, but also convinced his enemies that only a more elaborate plot could end his influence. The stage was set for a deadly conspiracy. By late 1916, a group of aristocrats, led by Prince Yusupov, Grand Duke Dmitry, and Purishkevich, plotted Rasputin's murder to save Russia. Yusupov lured Rasputin to his palace with promises of meeting his wife. In the cellar, Rasputin ate cakes and drank wine allegedly laced with cyanide. But nothing happened. The poison failed, or perhaps was never real. The conspirators grew desperate. Yusupov fetched a revolver and shot Rasputin, believing the deed was done. But Rasputin's legend was not so easily ended. The night was far from over. Yusupov returned to the cellar. Only for Rasputin to spring back to life, attacking his would-be killer and staggering into the snowy courtyard. Purishkevich fired more shots, finally bringing Rasputin down. Fearing he was still alive, the Kushtumbazato of the conspirators wrapped his body and put it into the frozen Malaya Nevka River. Days later, his corpse was found. Autopsy revealed water in his lungs, suggesting he drowned after surviving poison and bullets. Rasputin's death cemented his myth. The unkillable monk, felled only by the icy river. His murder shocked Russia, exposing the chaos at the heart of the regime. The monarchy's fate was sealed. What part of Rasputin's end do you find most unbelievable? Let us know in the comments. Rasputin's murder didn't save the monarchy, it hastened its fall. Within months, revolution swept away the Romanovs, just as Rasputin had allegedly prophesied in a chilling letter to the Tsar. Whether the prophecy was real or not, the royal family was executed. 2 years after Rasputin's death. Rasputin's legacy is not of a man who destroyed an empire, but of one who mirrored its fatal flaws: isolation, superstition, and resistance to change. Was he a healer, a charlatan, a puppet master? Perhaps all and none. Rasputin remains an enigma, a reminder of how personality, belief, and chance can change history. 10-minute story, every day a new pill of curiosity.